Captain Tom Walker stared at the small view screen, his eyes fixed on the massive alien warship approaching his tiny patrol vessel, the HSS Pioneer. The Pioneer was considered outdated even by human standards, the smallest, weakest ship in the Terran Defense Fleet. It was supposed to be a routine border patrol along the edge of human space. No one expected first contact to happen like this. "Captain, they're not responding to any of our greeting protocols," said Officer Jane Miller, her voice steady despite the fear everyone felt. The alien ship was at least 20 times larger than the Pioneer, covered in what appeared to be weapon systems unlike anything humans had ever developed. Intelligence later identified them as the Krell, an advanced warrior species that had conquered 3 other civilizations in the past decade. "All hands to battle stations," Tom ordered, knowing it was probably futile. The Pioneer had only 2 small laser cannons and basic shields. It was designed for border patrol and rescue missions, not combat against advanced alien warships. When the Krell opened fire, the Pioneer took heavy damage. Half the systems went offline immediately. The engine sputtered, life support was failing, and 3 crew members were already dead. "We can't win this fight," Engineer Bill Davis shouted from his station. "But I might have something." Bill had been experimenting with the ship's experimental emergency jump drive, a system that wasn't supposed to be activated except in the most desperate circumstances. It was untested technology, dangerous even to the ship using it. "Do it," Tom ordered as another blast rocked the ship. As the Krell moved in to finish off what they thought was an easy target, Bill activated the experimental drive. What happened next would change the course of human history forever. The drive didn't just move the Pioneer through space, it triggered an unexpected reaction with the alien weapon's fire. A strange energy field enveloped both ships, and when it cleared, something had fundamentally changed in the Pioneer's systems. The ship's computer began rewriting itself, incorporating elements of Krell technology. The damaged systems came back online, but different, enhanced. "Captain," Jane whispered, staring at her console in disbelief. "I think our ship just evolved." The Pioneer had become something new, neither fully human nor alien technology, but a hybrid that was somehow greater than the sum of its parts. Tom and his remaining crew of 12 were bewildered as the ship's systems came back online one by one, each with new capabilities they couldn't understand. The bridge lights pulsed with an eerie blue glow as the ship seemed to be rebuilding itself from the inside out. "The computer's doing something I've never seen before," said Lisa Green, the system specialist. "It's rewriting its own code, adapting the Krell weapons technology to work with our systems." The Krell ship, momentarily stunned by what had happened, renewed its attack. But this time, when their energy weapons struck the Pioneer, the little ship's new shields absorbed the blast completely. "Captain, I have weapons control," called out Gunner Mike Tanner. "But these aren't our old lasers anymore." The weapons system now showed options that hadn't existed minutes earlier. The Pioneer fired back, a concentrated beam of energy that cut through the Krell ship's shields like they weren't even there. The massive alien vessel backed away, clearly surprised by the sudden change in circumstances. "They're preparing another attack," Jane reported, monitoring the Krell ship's movements. "What's happening to us?" Tom asked, turning to Bill. "What did your jump drive do?" Bill shook his head, as confused as everyone else. The drive was experimental, designed to fold space for emergency jumps. But the energy from their weapons must have caused some kind of reaction. The ship's systems are adapting, learning from the Krell technology. It's like evolution, but for a machine. The Krell attacked again, this time with their full arsenal. Energy torpedoes, plasma beams, and projectiles all headed toward the Pioneer. "Brace for impact," Tom shouted. But instead of being destroyed, the Pioneer's new systems analyzed the incoming weapons and adjusted. The ship moved with unprecedented speed and agility, dodging some attacks while its shields absorbed others. Then, the Pioneer struck back. The counterattack wasn't just powerful, it was precise, targeting exactly the right spots on the much larger Krell vessel to disable its weapons and engines without destroying it completely. Within minutes, the mighty Krell warship was dead in space, its crew sending desperate distress signals to their fleet. "We need to get back to Earth," Tom said, staring at the disabled alien ship. "They need to know what's happened, both the Krell threat and what our ship has become." As they set course for home, none of them realized that this was just the beginning. The Pioneer was still changing, still evolving. And the Krell had already sent messages to their fleet about the strange human vessel that had somehow defeated one of their strongest warships. The hunt had begun. Word of the Pioneer's impossible victory spread quickly through the Krell Empire. Their military leadership couldn't believe that a tiny human ship had defeated one of their advanced warships. They dispatched a battle group of 5 warships to find and destroy the anomaly. Meanwhile, the Pioneer was racing back toward Earth, but the journey would take weeks even with their enhanced systems. Tom had ordered a full analysis of what had happened to their ship. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," Bill explained during a crew meeting. "The ship has developed a kind of adaptive intelligence. It's not exactly alive, but it's learning, evolving with each passing hour." "Is it dangerous?" Lisa asked, voicing what everyone was thinking. "Could it take control from us?" Bill shook his head. "It seems to recognize us as its crew. It's enhancing itself to better serve our needs. The weapon systems are now 10 times more powerful than before, and the shields can withstand attacks that would have vaporized us previously." Tom nodded thoughtfully. "We need to stay alert. This ship might be our greatest asset, but we still don't fully understand what it's becoming." 3 days later, the Pioneer's new sensors detected the approaching Krell battle group. "They found us," Jane announced grimly. 5 warships, all bigger than the one we fought before. Tom knew they couldn't outrun the faster Krell ships. "Prepare for battle." But as the crew took their stations, they noticed something strange. The ship's systems were already adjusting, preparing for the coming fight without commands. The weapons were charging, the shields modulating to the specific frequencies of Krell weapons. "It's anticipating the attack," Mike said in awe. "The ship knows what's coming." When the Krell ships arrived, they surrounded the Pioneer, confident in their overwhelming firepower. Their commander transmitted a message in roughly translated human language: "Surrender your vessel for study, or be destroyed." Tom looked at his crew. "Opinions?" "I think," Bill said slowly, watching the ship's systems prepare themselves, "we should let our new friend show us what it can really do." Tom nodded and opened a channel to the Krell. "This is Captain Tom Walker of the HSS Pioneer. We decline your offer." The Krell attacked immediately, all 5 ships firing simultaneously. But the Pioneer was ready. It moved with impossible speed, its enhanced engines pushing it through gaps in the Krell formation that shouldn't have existed. The battle that followed was unlike anything recorded in human military history. The tiny Pioneer danced between the massive Krell warships, striking with precision and power that belied its size. Each time the Krell adapted their tactics, the Pioneer adapted faster. "It's learning from them in real time," Lisa exclaimed, watching the ship's systems evolve even during the battle. "Every attack they try makes our ship smarter, stronger." 2 Krell ships were disabled in the first 5 minutes. A third was crippled shortly after. The remaining 2 began to retreat, but the Pioneer pursued, its weapons now configured to precisely target their engines. When it was over, all 5 Krell warships were disabled but not destroyed. Tom had managed to maintain enough control to prevent the Pioneer from annihilating their enemies completely. "Send a message to their ships," Tom ordered Jane. "Tell them to take a message back to their leaders: human space is off limits." As the crew celebrated their victory, Tom stood quietly by the view screen, watching the crippled Krell ships. The Pioneer had just defeated a force that could have wiped out half the human fleet. "What are you thinking, Captain?" Bill asked, joining him. "I'm thinking," Tom replied quietly, "that we're not just running home anymore. We're hunting." The Pioneer continued its journey home, but Tom had made a critical decision: they would not take a direct route. Instead, they would patrol the border of human space, seeking out any other Krell forces that might threaten Earth or human colonies. Over the next 2 weeks, the ship continued to evolve. The bridge expanded and reshaped itself to be more efficient. The life support systems improved to the point where the air felt fresher, more invigorating than standard ship atmosphere. The engines could now propel them at speeds no human vessel had ever achieved. The ship is integrating more and more of the Krell technology, but it's not just copying it, Bill explained during another crew meeting. It's improving on it, combining it with human engineering principles in ways I don't think even the Krell could imagine. Most fascinating was the ship's growing ability to repair itself. When a micrometeorite struck one section, the crew watched in amazement as the hull material flowed like liquid to seal the breach, then hardened into something stronger than the original hull. "It's almost like it has a healing factor now," Lisa observed. The Pioneer encountered 2 more Krell patrols and defeated them both easily. Each engagement seemed to accelerate the ship's evolution, as if combat was a catalyst for its development. After the 3rd encounter, Jane made a discovery that changed everything. "Captain, I've been analyzing the Krell communications we've intercepted. They're not just hunting us, they're planning a full-scale invasion of human space." Tom called an emergency meeting with his senior officers. "The question is, do we continue home to warn Earth, or do we take the fight to them? Even with everything the ship can do now, we're still just one vessel," Mike pointed out. "We can't stop an entire invasion fleet." "Maybe we can," Bill said thoughtfully. "The ship keeps getting stronger with each encounter. And I've been studying the jump drive that started all this. I think I understand it better now. We might be able to use it to reach the Krell staging area before their fleet departs." Lisa looked concerned. "But we still don't fully understand what's happening to the Pioneer. What if the next jump accelerates its evolution even more? What if it stops taking our commands?" It was a risk, but Tom saw no alternative. Earth had to be warned, but more importantly, the invasion had to be stopped before it began. "Set course for the coordinates Jane extracted from the Krell communications," Tom ordered. "Bill, prepare the jump drive." As the engineer worked, the ship seemed to respond to their intentions. New displays appeared on the bridge, showing simulations of the upcoming jump and potential outcomes. "It's helping us," Bill said in wonder. "The ship understands what we're trying to do." When they activated the jump drive, the energy field that enveloped them was much larger and more intense than before. For a moment, reality itself seemed to bend around the Pioneer. When they emerged, they were deep in Krell territory, and the Pioneer had changed again. The hull now shimmered with an iridescent coating that seemed to bend light around it. The weapon systems had evolved into something no human engineer could have designed. And in orbit around the planet below them was the Krell invasion fleet, 50 warships being prepared for the assault on human space. "They haven't detected us yet," Jane reported. "Our new stealth systems are keeping us hidden." Tom looked at the overwhelming force arrayed against them and at his transformed ship. "Let's see what the Pioneer can really do." The Pioneer hovered at the edge of the Krell fleet assembly area, cloaked by its new stealth technology. Tom and his crew watched as the 50 warships prepared for their jump to human space. "If they launch that attack, even with warning, Earth doesn't stand a chance," Mike said grimly. Tom nodded. "Then we stop them here." The crew looked at him in disbelief. Even with all the Pioneer's enhancements, taking on 50 Krell warships seemed impossible. "Captain," Bill said hesitantly, "I've been analyzing our ship's systems. There's something you should see." On the main screen, a diagram of the Pioneer appeared, showing energy flowing through systems that hadn't existed weeks ago. The ship has developed what I can only describe as a kind of energy pulse weapon, Bill explained. It's like nothing I've ever seen, combining elements of our original jump drive with Krell weapons technology. In theory, it could disable multiple ships simultaneously by temporarily disrupting their power systems. And the ship just created this on its own? Lisa asked. Bill nodded. It's been preparing for this moment, adapting specifically to counter the Krell fleet. Tom studied the tactical display. How many ships can it affect at once? Unknown, Bill admitted. But there's another factor to consider. The ship seems to be trying to communicate something to me through the engineering interface. I think it wants us to target the Krell command ship first. Tom made his decision. Take us in, silent approach. Prepare the pulse weapon. The Pioneer glided through the Krell fleet, its stealth systems rendering it invisible to their sensors. They positioned themselves directly above the massive command ship at the center of the formation. All systems ready, Bill reported. The pulse is charged. Fire, Tom ordered. The energy that erupted from the Pioneer was unlike anything they'd seen before, a rippling wave of blue-white light that engulfed the command ship and spread outward. The effect was immediate. The Krell vessels closest to the pulse went completely dark, their systems overloaded. But the Pioneer wasn't done. As the first wave of ships lost power, the small human vessel began to move through the fleet with incredible speed, firing precision strikes at key vessels that had been protected from the initial pulse. The ship is following a perfect attack pattern, Mike said in amazement. It's targeting their communications nodes first, then weapons, then engines. Within minutes, half the Krell fleet was disabled without being destroyed. The remaining ships, suddenly aware of the threat, began to fire wildly, trying to hit the nearly invisible attacker in their midst. That's when Tom saw the true extent of the Pioneer's evolution. As Krell weapons fire filled space, the ship didn't just evade, it seemed to phase partially out of reality itself, allowing energy beams and projectiles to pass harmlessly through it. What am I seeing? Tom asked, watching the impossible maneuvers. The jump drive technology, Bill explained, his voice filled with awe. It's not just for long jumps anymore. The ship can make micro-jumps, shifting partially out of normal space for split seconds to avoid attacks. The battle continued for nearly an hour. By the end, 45 of the 50 Krell warships were disabled but intact. 5 had been destroyed, but only after they had concentrated their fire on their own disabled ships, trying to deny the humans their technology. As the final Krell vessel went dark, a strange silence fell over the Pioneer's bridge. Open a channel to the Krell command ship, Tom ordered. When the connection was established, the Krell commander appeared on screen, a tall, reptilian being with amber eyes that reflected both fear and respect. This is Captain Tom Walker of the HSS Pioneer, Tom said firmly. Your invasion fleet has been neutralized. Return to your homeworld with this message: the human race is not your enemy unless you make us so. We don't want war, but as you've seen today, we will defend ourselves. After the transmission ended, Jane looked up from her console. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting more Krell ships approaching, a lot more. Tom nodded grimly. We've won the battle, but not the war. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. They need to know what's coming. As the Pioneer left the disabled Krell fleet behind, none of the crew noticed the subtle changes still occurring throughout the ship, changes that were accelerating with each passing hour. The Pioneer arrived in Earth orbit 3 days later, moving at speeds that shocked the defense grid operators. Warning alarms blared throughout Earth's defense network as the unidentified vessel appeared seemingly out of nowhere. We're being targeted by Earth defense platforms, Jane reported calmly. 20 missile locks and counting. Open all channels, Tom ordered. This is Captain Tom Walker of the HSS Pioneer returning from patrol with critical information. Authentication code Walker 79 Delta. There was a long pause before a response came through. Pioneer, your authentication is accepted, but our sensors show your vessel has been significantly altered. You are directed to hold position while a security team boards for inspection. Tom exchanged glances with his crew. They had expected this reaction, but they weren't sure how the evolved ship would respond to potential boarders. Acknowledged, Earth Command, Tom replied. But be advised, our ship has undergone unique changes after contact with an alien species called the Krell. Approach with caution and no hostile intent. The boarding team arrived an hour later, heavily armed and clearly nervous. Admiral James Wilson, head of Earth Defense, led the team personally. My God, Tom, the Admiral said, stepping onto the bridge and staring at the transformed surroundings. What happened out here? Over the next several hours, Tom and his crew explained everything: the initial Krell attack, the ship's transformation, the battles they'd fought, and the invasion that was coming. The Krell will regroup, Tom concluded. The ships we disabled are just a fraction of their total force. They'll be coming, and we need to be ready. Admiral Wilson nodded soberly. Our scientists will want to study your ship immediately. If we can understand what happened to the Pioneer, maybe we can replicate it for other vessels. But when the science team attempted to begin their examination, something unexpected happened. The ship's hatches sealed, preventing anyone from accessing critical systems. It won't let them study it, Bill realized. The ship is protecting itself. Can you talk to it? Tom asked. Make it understand these are our people? Bill tried, interfacing with the ship's systems, but the message that came back was clear: the Pioneer would not allow itself to be dismantled or studied in ways that might damage it. Admiral Wilson was furious. That ship is Earth property. We need its technology to defend ourselves. With all due respect, sir, Tom replied calmly, I don't think the Pioneer is just Earth property anymore. It's become something more. And I believe it will help us, but as an ally, not as a technology to be harvested. As if to confirm his words, new information appeared on the bridge displays, detailed schematics for defensive systems that could be built with Earth's existing technology, systems that would be effective against Krell weapons. It's giving us what we can actually use right now, Lisa explained, rather than technologies we don't have the infrastructure to reproduce. Admiral Wilson studied the schematics with growing interest. This we can build. Within months. And the Pioneer? Tom asked. The Admiral looked around the bridge, at the ship that had become so much more than anyone could have imagined. The Pioneer and its crew will be our vanguard. If you're willing, Captain Walker, you'll lead our defense when the Krell return. Tom looked at his crew, who nodded their agreement. We're willing, Admiral. The Pioneer was born for this fight. As the Earth prepared for war, the ship continued its evolution, but now with a clearer purpose, not just survival, but protection. The weakest human ship had indeed become the galaxy's worst nightmare, but not through destruction, through adaptation and the uniquely human traits of its crew who had guided its evolution toward defense rather than conquest. 6 months passed. Earth and its colonies had been transformed into a fortress, with new defense systems based on the Pioneer's schematics protecting every human world. The Pioneer itself had continued to evolve, though more subtly now, refining its systems rather than developing entirely new ones. Tom and his crew had become legends, the humans who had turned the tide against an overwhelming alien threat. But fame hadn't changed their dedication or their connection to their extraordinary ship. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive Krell fleet approaching the outer solar system, Jane reported one morning. At least 200 ships. Admiral Wilson called an emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council, with Tom attending as the expert on Krell tactics. This is it, the Admiral said grimly. The full might of the Krell Empire, coming to finish what they started. The human fleet, now enhanced with some of the technology the Pioneer had shared, was substantial, but still outnumbered. Earth's new defense systems were untested in actual combat. The outcome of the coming battle was far from certain. "The Pioneer should lead our main battle group," one general suggested. "Its technology is still superior to anything we've been able to replicate." Tom shook his head. "With respect, I believe the Pioneer needs to operate independently. It's most effective when it can adapt quickly to changing circumstances without having to coordinate with other ships." After some debate, the Council agreed. The human fleet would engage the Krell in conventional battle formations, while the Pioneer would be free to strike where it could do the most damage. As the Krell fleet entered the solar system, the tension on Earth was palpable. This was humanity's first true interstellar war, and their survival as a species hung in the balance. The Pioneer moved ahead of the human fleet, taking position just beyond Mars. Tom stood on the bridge, watching the approaching enemy armada on the view screen. "The ship feels different," Bill said quietly, standing beside him. "More focused somehow." Tom nodded. He had felt it too, a subtle change in the ship's responses, as if it had reached some new understanding of its purpose. "All hands, battle stations," Tom ordered as the first wave of Krell ships came within range. The battle began with a ferocity that exceeded even their previous encounters. The Krell had learned from their defeats, adapting their tactics to counter the Pioneer's advantages. They attacked in coordinated groups, trying to overwhelm the ship with sheer numbers. For the first time since its transformation, the Pioneer seemed genuinely challenged. It took damage, minor, but damage nonetheless. "They've adapted their weapons," Lisa reported. "They're using modulating frequencies that can partially penetrate our shields." Tom watched as the ship's systems responded, adjusting the shields to compensate. But it wasn't enough. The Krell kept changing their attack patterns, keeping the Pioneer on the defensive. Meanwhile, the human fleet engaged the bulk of the Krell forces. The new defense systems were performing well, but the sheer number of enemy ships was pushing them to their limits. "We need to do something decisive," Tom said, studying the tactical display. "At this rate, they'll wear us down eventually." That's when Bill noticed something strange happening with the ship's jump drive. "Captain, the drive is powering up, but I didn't initiate it." Energy readings were spiking throughout the ship, building toward some unknown threshold. The bridge lights pulsed with a rhythmic blue glow. "What's happening?" Tom asked, but he already suspected the answer. The ship was preparing for its final evolution. "I think," Bill said slowly, "it's going to attempt something we've never seen before. The energy signatures suggest a massive jump, but with some kind of pulse effect integrated into it." Tom made a quick decision. "Send a message to the fleet. Tell them to pull back from the central Krell formation. Give us a clear shot at their command ships." As the human fleet maneuvered away, creating a corridor through the battlefield, the Pioneer's energy readings continued to climb. The ship began to vibrate slightly as power surged through systems that hadn't existed when it left Earth as a simple patrol vessel. "Whatever it's planning," Bill warned, "it's going to take everything the ship has. All power is being channeled to the jump drive and weapon systems." Tom nodded, understanding the implications. "The ship is asking for our trust one last time. Let's give it." He opened the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. Secure yourselves for an unprecedented maneuver. I don't know exactly what's coming, but I believe in this ship, and I believe in all of you." The Pioneer accelerated suddenly, diving straight toward the heart of the Krell fleet where their largest command ships coordinated the attack. The enemy vessels concentrated their fire, but the Pioneer's enhanced shields held just long enough. "Jump drive at maximum power," Bill reported, his voice filled with awe. "But it's not configured for transportation, it's set up as some kind of massive energy wave." Tom understood then what the ship intended. It's going to use the jump field itself as a weapon, not to destroy, but to disable. Everyone hold on. Jane called out as the energy built to its peak. The Pioneer released its accumulated energy in a massive spherical wave that expanded outward at incredible speed. As it washed over the Krell ships, their systems went dark one by one. Not destroyed, simply returned to their basic state, stripped of all advanced technology. The wave continued to spread, touching each Krell vessel in the fleet, but passing harmlessly through the human ships. In its wake, it left 200 Krell warships floating powerless in space. On the Pioneer, the lights dimmed as nearly all systems went offline. The ship had given everything it had to create that final, decisive blow. Minimal power remaining, Bill reported. Life support only. We're basically dead in the water. Tom looked around at his exhausted but triumphant crew. Send a message to Earth. Tell them the Pioneer says you're welcome. In the aftermath, as human ships moved in to secure the disabled Krell vessels, the truth became clear. The Pioneer hadn't just won a battle, it had forced a stalemate. Without their technology, the Krell weren't the superior force they had once been. They would have to negotiate for peace. 3 weeks later, as the Pioneer was being towed back to Earth for repairs, Bill made a surprising discovery. Captain, we're getting power fluctuations in systems that were completely dead, he reported excitedly. The ship is rebooting itself, rebuilding from its core systems outward. Tom smiled. It's not done with us yet. What do you think it will become this time? Jane asked. Tom looked out at the stars, thinking about the future that now existed because of their unlikely journey. I don't know. But I do know one thing, whatever the Pioneer becomes next, it won't be a weapon of war. It's evolved beyond that now. As if in response, the ship's lights slowly came back on, bathing the bridge in a gentle blue glow. Not the harsh battle lighting they had grown accustomed to, but something softer, more peaceful. The weakest human ship had indeed become the galaxy's worst nightmare, but only for those who threatened the peace. For humanity, it had become something much more valuable, a guardian, a teacher, and a bridge to a future among the stars that none of them could have imagined when they first set out on a routine patrol all those months ago.